Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. It's so wonderful to see all seats filled this evening. Thank you for being with us. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and declare a quorum. We have all board members present this evening, along with our student board member. It's my pleasure to introduce at this time a second grade student at Jonathan Hager Elementary School, Jalen Lopez Espinal, and he is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Would you stand, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
It's just not the same thing. You didn't open it.
Hi, Jalen.
Hi.
It's nice to have you with us this evening. So you have some folks here with you, right? Would you like to introduce them to us? Tell us who they are that's with you today? Who do you have with you?
I have my mom here, my dad, my sister, and my brother.
Uh-huh. And how about that gentleman there in the blue shirt? Who is that? Right there, the tall guy with the glasses.
Mr. Semler.
Mr. Semler. And is Mr. Semler your principal? Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Semler, for being here in support of Jalen, and thank you, family, for being here. So how are things these days at Jonathan Hager Elementary, Jalen?
Very good.
Very good. Do you enjoy school?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite subject?
Math.
Wow. And after school, what do you enjoy doing when you're not doing your math? Someone told me you like to play on the playground. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You have a favorite game or a favorite piece of equipment out there on the playground? What might that be? So many, huh? Yeah.
Soccer ball?
Basketball.
Basketball.
Slides.
Yeah.
Swings.
Swing.
And
I miss swings.
bicycle.
That's okay. And I understand you like spaghetti. Is that your most favorite food? Yeah, spaghetti. Do you like yours with meat sauce or meatballs? You have to think about that a little bit. Take it either way? Okay. Well, Jalen, I understand that your teachers think that you are a kind, respectful, and caring young man. And I want to thank you for that, because you are a role model and an example for your fellow students. So that's a very nice compliment that your teacher has paid you.
Thank you.
To be that role model. And I thank you for being here this evening with us. Did you have anything you wanted to ask any of us? No?
No.
No? Well, thank you so much for being here.
Mrs. Williams,
Uh-huh.
I would just like to thank the parents for raising a good son. Thank you. We need more parents like you. Congratulations.
Everything you can do, if you do have Lord in your heart.
That's
Yes. All right. Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll have approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zedmeyer. Any discussion of the agenda? All those in favor? Okay, we have unanimous approval. Student member concurs. And we'll have the approval of the minutes next.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the closed meeting minutes dated February 21st, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zedmeyer. Okay, there's no discussion because these are closed session minutes, so we'll move right to the vote. All those in favor of approval? Unanimous approval.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated February 21st, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zedmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes? Okay, then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the business meeting minutes Tuesday, February 21st. All those in favor? All right, we have unanimous approval and student member concurs. Thank you. And we will next have the superintendent's report, and we will continue his report after new business. So, Dr. Savine?
Thank you, President Williams and members of the board. I'm excited to begin this evening's recognition with some student honorees and their teacher. Ms. Vasic students are no strangers to the top spot in the We the People state competition. Scott Berman, our high school social studies content specialist, will join us now to share more about the competition and Boonesboro High's unbreakable winning streak. Mr. Berman.
I have to speak in a microphone, but I'm speaking to you and to everybody in the audience. So, good evening, Dr. Savine and members of the board. Today, we'd like to recognize students who competed and were victorious at the We the People state competition held in Annapolis, Maryland on January 20th, 2023. We the People is a simulated congressional hearing providing students an opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of constitutional principles and ideas. These students will prepare for late April's national competition. This is the 8th consecutive year that Boonesboro High School has advanced to the national competition. This evening, we are joined by team members, a student coach, and Miss Ashley Vasic, the team advisor. Students, I'll announce your names. Indira Aranha. We'll save applause for the end. Just speeds things up. Mackenzie Beer. Grant Doss. Logan Harwood. Hamza Yvonne. Ryan Lord. Dylan Matthews. Caroline Matthews. Emma Melby. Rachel Norris. Caitlin Queen. Jason Ridgely. Morgan Shuckman. Jillian Zimmerman. Student coach Liam Ryan. And finally, their advisor, Miss Ashley Vasic. Congratulations.
My friend, I'm gonna need to put you next to Liam here.
Liam, how far are you?
Mark Logan, a little step to your left.
Can you get around? Okay.
Mr. Stafford, a little step to your right. There you go. All right, we're looking good. Good smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. One more for good measure. And 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful things you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks again. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Oh, I'm having trouble with my knee.
This week is observed as School Social Work Week across the country. I'll turn it over now to Helen Huffer, our Supervisor of School Counseling, and Connie Hartman, our Supervisor of District Programs. They both lead teams of our talented school social workers, and they'll tell us more about how these professionals are making a positive impact in our schools and in the lives of our students.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. I'm Helen Huffer, Supervisor of School Counseling, and this is Connie Hartman, Supervisor of District Programs. National School Social Work Week is recognized March 5th through the 11th, 2023. The National Association of Social Workers has selected Breaks Barriers as this year's theme. Our WCPS School Social Work team serves in a variety of roles to assist students and families to overcome barriers that impede academic and personal growth.
Social workers collaborate with school staff, parents, and community partners to support students in accessing their education. They provide direct mental and behavioral health services, along with linkages and referrals for additional services to support students and families. We appreciate and value the work that our school social workers do every day to help students. Thank you to our school social workers.
President Williams, that concludes our report up to this point, and we'll continue here shortly. But certainly, we extend our appreciation to our school social workers.
Thank you, Superintendent Savine. At this point in the meeting, we have public comment. And before we begin, I'll read from our policy regarding public comment at business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. And Mrs. Murray is our timekeeper. Mrs. Murray, would you like to explain how that works?
Yes, you're given 5 minutes. When you have 30 seconds left, I will hold this up, and then when your time is up, wrap it up with this.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. So I have actually I have 2 names. The first name I have is John Eckstein. Mr. Eckstein, come forward, please.
Any one of them.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the school board. And
Dr. Savine, is that how you pronounce your name, new superintendent? Okay. My name is John Eckstein. I'm a former band student and director of the Clear Spring High School Blazer Band. And I also would like to say I'm a proud former high school band director of Washington County, Maryland. The fact is that I think some of the most formative years that I had in teaching and what really led me to look at greater and different professional parts of my career actually get started in Washington County. So that's one thing that I'll be forever grateful. I'm currently the director of athletic bands and symphonic concert band at Monmouth College in Monmouth, Illinois. And once again, I'm here this evening just in support of the possible, if I'm correct, the downgrading of a full-time position, instrumental music teacher, band director, Clear Spring High School, to part-time. And I'm not here to talk about the former successes or current successes of the Clear Spring High School Blazer Band, but simply just to mention some things about the positive affects of music and what it does to the brain. So music effect on the brain, there are many pretty significant differences between a musician's brains and the brains of non-musicians. And the differences start to show from a very young age. Researchers at the University of Zurich studied IQ levels in elementary school children who played an instrument or who did not have any musical training. Students who played an instrument showed a significantly higher IQ than students who did not, up to 7 points higher. One study found that a professional musician's auditory cortex has up to 130% more gray matter and 102% more activity than non-musicians. Even the brains of amateur musicians show up to 32% more brain activity than people who don't play at all. And we have a professional musician here this evening who was a graduate of Clear Spring High School and had been one of the, and probably is still considered one of the finest euphonium players, not only in the United States and the world, and Dr. Neil Corwell. So obviously that has a quite a big effect on his life and the lives of students. Playing a musical instrument changes your brain, increasing musical plasticity, brain plasticity too. When Professor Steve Milton convinced Larry Parsons, a neurobiologist at the Scripps Research Institute, to conduct a musical experiment for fun, the results showed that everyone can enjoy the brain benefits of playing an instrument. Milton had never played an instrument, and he was a terrible singer. He took singing lessons for 1 year, and Parsons scanned Milton's brain before and after the year of lessons. After that year, Milton's brain showed increases activity in several areas. He still didn't sing very well, but his brain had formed new neural connections and networks to process music. Then while studying music is wonderful just for the pleasure of it, there's other benefits as well. Studies show that instrumental practices encourages coordination, concentration, and memory, according to Dr. Frank Wilson from the University of California School of Medicine, San Francisco. He further reports that the process of learning to play an instrument refines the development of the brain and the entire neurological system. In support of this, Dr. Wilson shared recent data from UCLA brain scan research studies, which shows that music more fully involves brain function, both left and right hemispheres, than any other activities. Music instruction can improve a child's spatial intelligence for long periods of time, perhaps permanently, says Francis Roscher of the University of California, Irvine. A reading program in New York dramatically improved reading achievement scores by including music and art in the curriculum. The Norwegian Research Council for Science and Humanities concluded that there was a high correlation between positive self-perception, high cognitive competence scores, self-esteem, and interest and involvement in school music. And Dr. Shinsei Suzuki said in 1983, "Teaching music is not my main purpose. If children hear fine music from the day of their birth and learn to play it, they develop sensitivity, discipline, and endurance. They get a beautiful heart." So once again, I understand that the position is not being cut at Clear Spring, but it's just being downgraded to a part-time position. I always believe that as much music as students can be able to process and be able to play, obviously has that positive effect on their other academic subjects. And once again, I'm very honored and privileged to be able to speak to you this evening, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Eckstein. Next person on the list is Carol Corwell Martin. Good evening.
thank you for the opportunity to compliment what Mr. Eckstein has just shared. He has the research. I'm coming perhaps with another way of looking at this issue. Hello, my name is Carol Corwell Martin. I am a Clear Spring community member and a Clear Spring High School alumni and band member at Frostburg. I am here to address the proposed 75% staffing reduction in the instrumental music program, marching band, concert band, orchestra, and related instruction at Clear Spring High School. A wise man once said, "For every complex problem, there is a simple solution." And it is usually wrong. The simple solution proposed for Clear Spring High School is a part-time, non-salary teacher to teach 2 periods or 90 minutes total per day. This is a wrong solution to a complex problem. Now let me explain. No one is poorly intentioned. No one is setting out to kill the program. In fact, I think lots of people are bending over backwards to convince others and to convince themselves that this can work. But in my opinion, and those who have reached out to me, and they have been many, students in the program, parents who have students in the program, parents of children in the middle and the elementary schools, in fact, a pastor of one of the Clear Spring churches today saying, we need musicians. In the opinion of all of these persons, this cut is too drastic. It is a response to mandates and budgets, which are causing much constraint. But the simple solution, we fear, is going to cause the program to fail. For example, consider this. The plan is a half-time teacher will teach 2 periods at the high school, will immediately get across the Clear Spring campus to teach an additional 2 hours at the elementary school. Somehow also, this teacher will be ensured a 90-minute block of time to complete planning and administrative duties. These duties will be odious, considering the teacher is operating 2 different programs at 2 different buildings and 2 different levels, including all the logistics that are involved in a band program, and all of this for half-time pay and no benefits. I want to be an optimist about this. I want it to work. But my program manager experience, which have been many, is having a difficult time seeing how this can work, or maybe I should say how it can work well. And on the flip side, if Clear Spring can, as has been assured, they can maintain a quality feasible model, such as this, then why is that not the model for all of the high schools? Why is it just Clear Spring that will have a .25 position? Why not all of the other county schools? Lastly, I want to point out that promises were made before any of you were on the board, I must add, that quality music programs would continue at small rural schools when the School for the Arts was open. That was a great concern of small communities. Do you still feel comfortable that that promise is being adhered to? Can a gifted student that wants to stay at Clear Spring still feel confident that there will be a band in the years to come? Or can that average student who will not enter the School for the Arts and wants to be in a band, wants to play a musical instrument, wants to find the place to belong, do you feel confident that this will exist in the years to come? How will a rising third grader getting ready to enroll in the Clear Spring instrumental program know with assurance that there will be a Blazer band by the time they reach high school? I implore you, please study this more fully, engage with the community, and ensure that instrumental music programs will remain in the Clear Spring schools. Can we not find some middle ground between the current staffing and this drastic staffing reduction? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak during public comment? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, board members. My name is Chris Dennis. I doubt many people in this room, I know some people know who I am. I'm not here to speak in my position. I'm here to speak as an individual. I learned the trumpet starting at the age of 12. I'm currently 41, and I've played the trumpet for nearly 30 years. As you can probably tell, I'm not from Clear Spring, but I do live there. I started my career in a small rural school about the size of Clear Spring. I had a very strong music program, and I'm very glad it did. I've played in jazz bands, in orchestras, in concert bands, in marching bands, in pit bands. I played all the way through high school. I played through college. I played through grad school. I play to this day. In fact, I picked my trumpet up this morning and played. Music for me as a high school student was a social outlet. It molded who I am as a person. It gave me confidence. It gave me teamwork. It means that I can stand in front of hundreds of people and speak confidently on subjects that I know about. Because through high school, I sat in front of hundreds of people and played my trumpet and was proud of that. It gave me performance skills. It helped me deal with nerves. It helped me deal with anxiety. It taught me teamwork and working with other people, even if I didn't like them. I sat in high school band with kids that I would be bullied by or fight with in the playground. But we sat out a band and we played together. I was never a great musician. Music wasn't my talent. I wouldn't have made it as a professional. If I was a student in high school now, I was great at science. I'd be going to some science magnet school. I wouldn't have time for band. Band wouldn't fit into my life because I would have been streamed into doing science straight away. If I was a high school student in Clear Spring in 5 to 10 years from now, I probably wouldn't get to do music. Everyone I've spoken to has current experience as a band director, prior experience as a band director, says the Clear Spring band program will not survive this. You cannot run a band with a part-time band director. It just doesn't work. Music, ultimately, to me, is cultural enrichment. It's not important that we provide musical education for musically talented people. It's important that we provide musical education for all people, whether they're talented or not. It's an outlet. It enriches everyone's lives. It enriches kids' lives in particular. I'm a proud musician. I'm a proud tax-paying citizen of Clear Spring and of Washington County. I'm a proud immigrant. But I'm not proud of the Board of Education at the moment. I'm not proud that it seems that some people believe that musical enrichment isn't important for kids in rural areas, for kids in small schools. I realize now how lucky I was that the people who ran the education in the school where I was didn't see fit 5, 10 years beforehand to eliminate the program through cuts that they may have been well-intentioned and they may have been trying to balance a difficult budget, but the ultimate thing is they killed the program. My life would have been much duller, much poorer without music in it. And I'm very sad for young people in Clear Spring that they may not have the joy of that in 10 years' time. You may not kill it today, but it will kill it. And ultimately, it doesn't seem fair that a 15-mile accident of circumstance, birth, call it what you will, means that a kid that grows up in Clear Spring has a poorer education than a kid who grows up in Hagerstown. Ultimately, that's what we're talking about, right? If you grow up in Hagerstown, you have all the opportunities given to you, and if you're unlucky enough to be born to parents who live in Clear Spring, you don't get it. You get a part-time band director. Seems a bit wrong. I hope that some of the board played in high school band. I suspect a lot of you did. I hope that you think back to what that felt like and the experiences you had and realize that they were some of the greatest experiences of your high school life, and that you risk denying this to, not to kids 5 years from now, but kids 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. Because if you cut it to part-time, it will never come back. Even if the program survives, it will never go back to a full-time teacher, because finding money to expand a program is a huge effort. It's really easy to cut it. I know my 5 minutes isn't up. It nearly is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Good evening.
Good evening, board members. My name is Megan Smith, and I'm actually an alumna of South Hagerstown High School and their marching band program, along with concert band. But currently, I'm the color guard instructor for Clear Spring. Usually, this would just be for summer months, but luckily, Clear Spring has a great program with parades, so the fun gets to last all year. I'm here to voice concerns about the allocation of staffing, specifically for music education such as marching band, concert band, wind ensemble, jazz band, at Clear Spring High School for the 2023-2024 school year. Based upon the secondhand information I have received through Clear Spring community members, placing a part-time instructor into the role of a full-time position will be detrimental to all faculty, staff, and students involved, through no fault of their own. As we can all imagine, a part-time position with full-time responsibilities can lead to extreme burnout for everybody involved, and I'm sure that's something, we can all agree on that we don't want to happen, amongst other things. Music programs such as this one not only foster creativity, a pillar for which this board holds for Washington County Public Schools, but it develops important traits such as teamwork, confidence, discipline, and for some students, it gives a sense of stability and assurance through specific educators that they would otherwise not receive in their home life. I implore those who are past educators to empathize with the situation at Clear Spring. I assume you have quantifiable numbers of students who will be affected by this personnel change, but those numbers are not including those students who I have had the honor to work with throughout this past year. For these students, I know they feel saddened and confused and a little betrayed that their program will not be the same as it was, my apologies. Due to the fact that it will lose the heart of this program. It will lose an instructor that will be able to be with them after school, be with them through all of the programs that they otherwise have learned to love through their 4 years at Clear Spring. I have a short speech today, but for my final thoughts, I encourage you to keep this music program as it is with the people who are there. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Lowen, and I wanted to speak this evening about this year's proposed budget. My view on the budget is that our children's education is invaluable, and therefore there is no price that's too high. On the other hand, there is always the practical side. Money can only go so far towards solving a problem. Everything has a point where no matter how much more you spend, it's not going to improve anything. The second consideration is that government spending always gets paid for by increasing taxes, and taxes are an expense, just like groceries and car payments and mortgage payments. In other words, in order to increase the school budget, you are taking away from every other area of a child's life. With that in mind, when you break down the numbers of this budget, the first thing that jumps out is that this is the largest budget ever proposed by this board. Additionally, when you look at past budgets, there is a change that occurred in 2018. That was the last year that this board produced a budget that was in line with how much the cost of living increased by. In other words, as the cost of utility bills, going out to a restaurant and filling up your car with gas all increased, how much this board spent on each student also went up in line with the cost of living, which makes perfect sense. However, that changed with the 2018-2019 school year. That budget increased 2 times more than the cost of living did. And every year since, the budget has increased far above the cost of living. Under this year's proposed budget, every adult in our county would pay approximately $3,100 in taxes to support our schools. But if this board had been increasing the budget in line with living expenses and paychecks for the last 6 years, that amount would be $2,700 instead of $3,100. The first question is what changed in 2018? Because these budget increases have real consequences. That $400 per person difference is what would have enabled many families to go on a vacation. For other families, those lower taxes would have paid for their kids being in sports and marching band and having birthday parties. For some families, having to pay those additional taxes is what tipped them over into not being able to afford groceries. The good news is that it appears that this year's proposed budget will break that trend for the first time in 6 years. When you account for the potential change in enrollment, it seems possible that the amount spent on each student could come in slightly below the increase in inflation. Does it lessen the burden from previous years? No, but it is genuinely positive that we have a budget this year that appears to be in line with the community's ability to sustain it, and that should be recognized. There is a concern that I do have about this budget. There are thousands of school districts across America that outperform ours. And counterintuitively, well over half of these school districts spend less per student than what we spend. So how is this possible? You know, this issue of the Clear Spring community speaking this evening in defense of their band program is an example of the divergence between the high-cost, low-performing school districts and the low-cost, high-performing school districts. You know, canceling a marching band is really a minuscule expense. It's a minuscule expense that comes with tremendous correlation to academic performance. When the other individual was speaking about the benefits of the brain, I don't know if he mentioned it or not, but one of the things that music does is it literally thickens, measurably thickens the connection between the lobes. And that is what you're cutting, is something that has a pure 100% correlation to academic performance. But this board has this intense focus on spending vast amounts of money to bring the guidance counselor-student ratio to 1 counselor to 250 students, a goal that has like zero correlation to academic performance. I mean, is it recorded anywhere that bringing down the counselor-to-student ratio has increased performance? And if it has, then you have something to talk about. But you know what? I don't think anywhere that's been the case. And yet the focus is colossal. And this is what takes the loss, are things that have proven academic improvements, such as music program, getting slashed to accomplish a goal that has never been observed anywhere to achieve anything positive. And that is the difference between the high-performing school districts with lower costs, the lower-performing school districts with higher costs, because education is not expensive. It's a matter of strategy, it's a matter of priorities. So I also would like to say, let's reinstate the Clear Spring music program. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, then we'll bring public comment to a close. Thank you all for sharing your comments and concerns with us this evening. This time we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues, do any of you wish to offer comment? Mr. Stauffer.
I'd just like to say I came up through the music program back in the 50s and 60s and came up through the marching band at South Hagerstown High School when we had probably 100 and some people in it in the early 60s. Gave me an opportunity to do a lot of things. As a high school freshman, we performed in the Macy's Parade in New York City. The same year we did a halftime show for the Baltimore Colts, Los Angeles Rams. I think the Rams are back in Los Angeles now, but the Colts are gone. We attended the Music Man Marching Band Festival in Mason City, Iowa, when they opened up with the world premiere of the Music Man movie in 1962 in the summertime between sophomore and junior year. We marched in the Miss America pageant parade on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, where one of my friends jumping on the bed in the hotel broke the bed down. But a lot of things going on. I'll just say this, as a board member, I still haven't wrapped my mind around this music thing. I've had some questions. I still have some questions. But my advice to the Clear Spring community would be to not necessarily depend on secondhand information, but have a talk with the people on staff here who handle these situations on a daily basis, and have that conversation if you haven't had it already. That's all I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Gesper.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I know I've said this numerous times. to my board members, I was never a band member. I was invited to participate in a march for the Alsatia Parade because of a group of individuals that weren't able to perform, so I got to be a part of that. But what I see in our community, when you get on Facebook and you say one thing about Mrs. Kunkel, 50 people get on there and comment about how wonderful their time was in band and how they remember the littlest things in life and how important it was to them to be with that team and on the fields and those hot days, and they would never trade it for anything. I don't remember anything about algebra class. I don't remember anything. Sorry about your class, but I don't remember other than you being there, because Mr.
Hedge was a freshman, right?
I know he was my freshman teacher, but I can remember standing in front of the band, being a neophyte for that one moment. I can remember all the fun things that those band members now talk about, and the memories, how that no matter how old, they remember them. And I think it's a shame that we would take away any part of any music program, be it in elementary, middle, or high school. And I would never support that. And if it was up to me, every band would have 300 members in. And it would be back to the days of what it used to be. It's not going to be like that, I don't think, but I don't feel like we need to lessen that music program because it is so important for the future of many students. So I would hope that board members and the community would continue to support Clear Spring and all band programs throughout Washington County, because the history of Washington County bands is so thick. People know us, every band, North, South, Smithsburg, all won big championships everywhere they went. Always. Clear Spring, they all won championships because we had such an elite program of music. I would hope that we could continue that, and I would never support cutting the program. I do know that there are money issues, but I am with those parents. I would like to see it continue.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. At this time, we'll have reports to the board, and reports to the board will continue later in our meeting, but we have one report we're going to do now, and this is a report from the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee, known as the BARC fondly. So the BARC representative is here to talk to us about the committee's findings and recommendations regarding the Board of Education's fiscal year 2024 draft general fund operating budget. So, Mr. Prue, would you like to introduce the chair?
I would be
the
happy
committee?
to. Thank you, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. As staff liaison to the BARC, if I can, since it's already been introduced, I'll use the acronym, the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee. I get excited when I talk about this committee because it's not often we get to get excited about the budget. And so as we have these meetings, it's always an exciting time, and staff thinks I'm crazy, but that's all right. With me this evening is Kristen Milcarek. She is the chair of the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee and has been now for a few years, and I thank her for her service. I've shared with the board members that the Advocacy and Review Committee met on a few evenings here after the board adopted the superintendent's recommended budget as their draft budget. Along with Mr. Brandenburg and I, we walked them through the budget, really sharing with them the PowerPoints and the information that's been shared with the board to give them a sense of how you came to adopt that draft budget as your own. And then really had discussions with them about larger issues, state funding, county funding, general operating, special needs, EL, blueprint. I mean, we really had in-depth conversations. We sat new members this year, a significant number of new members, and they jumped right in. And so the committee really melded well. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Ms. Milcarek and ask her to share a few words. You have the the full report by the committee in your packets, but I think Kristen wants to share some information.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. As Mr. Prue mentioned, you do have the full report, so I'll just share some of our conclusions. The Budget Advocacy and Review Committee feels that the Board of Education budget meets the most significant needs of the Washington County community as defined by the priority areas. Most importantly, if approved, the state will be providing 73.6% of the new revenue to this budget, minimizing the impact on the local tax base. However, the Board of County Commissioners and citizens of Washington County should consider whether this budget fulfills the needs of the county or their collective vision for the public education for the future. The committee applauds the superintendent and Board of Education for prioritizing the needs of students and staff by establishing a significant resource pool. This recognizes the efforts provided by staff daily to attract best candidates for a wide array of staff openings. The committee supports the significant funding required to meet the requirements of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, such as the HCC dual enrollment courses and the impactful increases in EL teachers and Welcome Center staff who support the significant growth in the EL population in Washington County. The committee also recognizes a substantial investment of the Board of Education to the Workforce Development Board supporting career exploration for students. The committee agrees with the inclusion of safety and security assistance in schools to build relationships with students and to meet the immediate needs of the students while also supporting and developing a safe learning environment. The committee supports the inclusion of the various positions which support the need of students in response to numerous citizen and staff concerns. The committee also recognizes a need for additional student resources and classroom supports to close the achievement gaps and provide for behavioral needs for students. So in closing, the members of the Budget Advocacy Review Committee are in full support of the draft fiscal 2024 General Budget Fund and its proposed adoption by the Board of Education on March 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your service over these several years, and please extend our thanks to the members of your committee. We appreciate it.
I certainly will. Thank you.
And Mrs. Williams, if I may as well, I think I was remiss. We do have a couple of the members of the committee here this evening. Dr. Terry Williamson is here, who, of course, is no stranger. I think she's been on the committee now for, well, I won't say how many years. And one of our new members, Ms. April Crowhair, who many of the board members know and for her advocacy in the community, is also here this evening as well.
Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Thank you, Mrs. Crowhair, for your service as well. We appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for the support for the budget. At this time, we're going to take a recess from our business meeting, and we're going to convene a public hearing. This public hearing is for the purpose of hearing from the public. We're providing an opportunity for those who wish to comment on the board's fiscal year 2024 draft general fund operating budget. So at this time, I would like to read from policy. Oh, wait a minute. Regarding this public comment. This is policy KD under Roman numeral 3C, procedures at public hearings. Number 1. Persons desiring to speak at such public hearings are encouraged, but not required, to register through the superintendent's office prior to the date of the meeting or register at the location of the meeting up to 1/2 hour in advance of the commencement of the hearing. Persons speaking as individuals will be allowed 3 minutes. Those representing an organization will be allotted 5 minutes. No presenter may waive all or a portion of his or her allotted time to permit someone who has not properly registered to speak. At this time, I have one individual who has signed up in advance to speak, and that is Mr. Neil Becker. Mr. Becker, would you like to come forward? Mr. Becker, are you speaking as an individual or representing a group?
I'm not going to fill up the time.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, President Williams, board members, Dr. Servine, and staff. I actually don't even have any notes in front of me to speak in support of just such a, I feel like comprehensive budget that addresses the needs of Washington County students and staff. There are intense needs regarding staffing at all levels in Washington County Public Schools. We literally have dozens of vacancies in our support staff personnel. We are now finding vacancies in our teaching and administrator personnel. This budget that staff put together and the board is adopting is thorough. It addresses the needs of students academically, social and emotionally as well. And when it comes to the safety, an innovative move with some of the new safety and security personnel that have been trained throughout the spring and are being implemented. And I do want to add, I did a quick, based on an earlier comment, I did a quick search about the value of school counselors. It only took me a couple minutes while we were here in the meeting. Here's one study that says school counselors are an important part of students' academic success, particularly in marginalized communities. It goes on to say the support is particularly notable in communities with higher rates of poverty. Research correlates student to counselor ratios with better academic outcomes for students in high poverty communities. The intensive individualized support that school counselors offer helps students overcome personal barriers and achieve success in the classroom. And as we think about the role school counselors play, and again, there are dozens of studies on the topic. The findings offer more evidence of the value of the school counselor role and suggest that a greater investment in school counselors may be as effective and more cost-effective than rolling out new college-going interventions that operate outside of schools. And I can go on. But every employee in Washington County Public Schools is essential to the success. And I am hopeful that the county staff and then the County Board of Commissioners will see that funding the proposed budget that's been put forth is investment in our economy. And I've said it for years, and this is the last time I get to say it as the association president. Investment in education is economic investment, and it costs far less to educate than to rehabilitate. Invest in public schools. Thank you for such a thoughtful budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay. And we will adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the business meeting. At this time, we'll begin our old business portion of the meeting. And our first item of old business is an item for consideration regarding the Board of Education's fiscal year 2024 general fund budget in draft form. So Mr. Prue, Mr. Brandenburg, Mr. Sisler, good evening. Mr. Prue?
Thank you again, Mrs. Williams. So this action item is a consideration for the board to amend its draft budget. Subsequent to your adoption of the draft budget, staff received revised state aid allocations from the Maryland State Department of Education. Those allocations provide a minor shift in the enrollment count, but also provided shifts in the cost share allocation between state and local government on the various revenue streams that we receive, the major state aid packages we receive from the state. The net result of those is that the Board of Education should be receiving $632,898 additional in state aid than was approved in your draft budget. Staff is making a recommendation to you to allocate those funds as revenue to your budget, and on the expense side to allocate that to the staff resource pool.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to amend the FY 2024 draft budget to include an additional $632,898 in state aid and to allocate the amount to the salary resource pool.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions? Any comments? Any discussion? All right, then we'll just move to the vote. We're voting to amend the fiscal year 2024 draft budget to include an additional $632,898 in state aid and to allocate that amount to the salary resource pool. All those in favor of the amendment? We have a unanimous decision, and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second item of old business is the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBAA, sexual harassment, student school employees.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sabine, members of the board. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy GBAA at its business meeting on February 21st, 2023. Following the approval, the Policy Committee posted a notice on Board Docs and the school system's website seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes. No comments were received. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBAA.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBAA entitled Sexual Harassment School System Employees.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBAA. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous decision, and the student member concurs. Thank you, Mrs. Ram. And now on to new business. Our first item of new business is a donation. Mr. Embley. Good evening.
Evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sabine. Once again this year, we participated in the Giant Feeding School Kids Roundup program. All 4 of our local Martin stores participated in asking their customers to round up. This year, the initiative raised $23,896.24. The Giant Company matched the first $250,000 of the Roundup donations and over $1.3 million to date. I'd like to express our appreciation and thank the local Martin stores and the Giant Company for their continued support of WCPS Food Nutrition Services. If approved by the board, these funds will be used for purchasing extra food, to be sent home with students for weekends this summer, and to offset accrued debt students that have become eligible for free and reduced meals. I'm requesting that the board approve this donation of $23,896.24 from the Giant Feeding School Kids Roundup program. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Embley. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a donation in the amount of $23,896.24 plus food items from the Giant Feeding School Kids program to the Washington County Public Schools Food and Nutrition Services.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion, any questions for Mr. Embley?
I just want to say one thing. I'm so glad that I round up when I go to Martin's. I see it being used.
Thank you for shopping at Martin so that we can benefit. And you thanked the Martin store, you thanked the Giant Corporation, and I'd like to thank all the shoppers who made it possible for us to receive this donation.
Thank you. There were 3 store managers that came earlier tonight that expressed their appreciation of the partnership as well.
Great. Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve a donation in the amount of $23,896.24 plus food items from the Giant Feeding School Kids program to Washington County Public Schools Food and Nutrition Services. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote. The student member concurs. Thank you, Mr. Embley.
Great, thank you.
All right, our next item under new business is this evening's consent agenda. Good evening, Mr. Cruz.
Good evening again. Filling in for Mr. Bakewell this evening, there are 5 items for your consideration this evening. All of these items have been reviewed by our Procurement Review Committee and are recommended for your approval. Staff's here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve awards, renewals, and procurements for HVAC products, installation services, and related products and services to Bowling Train Services, Inc. at the unit prices listed. Vehicle bid to Criswell Fleet Sales, Ideal Buick, Inc., Pacifico Ford, Inc., the Frederick Motor Company at the identified rate above or below the dealer invoice price. Projectors to Nicholas P. Pepino Associates, Inc., at a cost of $209,691. Maintenance and support of Avaya VoIP telephone system, renewal to Carousel Industries at a cost of $54,119.17. And vulnerability management software renewal to CDWG at a cost of $92,000.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Questions for Mr. Prue or any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So I know we talked about number 2, the vehicle bid in Finance Committee, and I must not have fully understood. So we're doing I guess could you kind of explain how that works? I'm not sure why we're voting or why we're bidding a general rate. Do we know what vehicles we're going to be buying? It just seems like we should just do one bid on when we know we need the vehicle and just bid on the specific vehicle rather than a general thing.
Yep, happy to explain. As members of the Finance Committee know, really over the last 2 or 3 years, the procurement of vehicles has been difficult. We have approximately 75 vehicles in our fleet between sedans, cargo vans, pickup trucks, and so forth. The nature of how we have typically procured vehicles is receive pricing as we have a vehicle need through either a Montgomery County bid, a state bid, a national bid. The national bid typically is an order purchase, which then, of course, takes 9 months often to receive. And under the current vehicle market, the window for government orders is very slow, very small. And oftentimes, there's more vehicles requested than manufacturers can fill. So truly, we've not ordered off the national order program in at least 2 years. The vehicles we have been able to procure have been on-lot vehicles that have been available that we've been able to either secure a pricing from another agency or something else as it's needed. To help to facilitate the purchase of vehicles, what we've asked for, and truly to keep some of the expenses in the more regional market. We floated our own bid, asking for vendors to provide a price that was either plus or minus the manufacturer's invoice price to the dealer. And then this would work a lot like many of our other unit price rates. As we have an opportunity or need for a vehicle, I shouldn't even say opportunity, if we have a need for a vehicle that needs to be replaced, the department that has that need would shop a specific vehicle. I need for instance, we have an SUV that was damaged in an accident. I need to procure an SUV to replace that vehicle. I would reach out to the vendors that would offer an SUV under this bid and ask them to provide pricing underneath this bid. It is a maximum allowable cost under the bid. So at any point, they can go less than the prices that they've indicated here. And then we would award a bid based on that. So we're asking you to approve the vehicle that will allow staff to reach out and then procure those vehicles as needed.
And are they required to offer a quote as well as a result of this bid?
They may not offer a quote if they don't have a vehicle that matches the specifications on their lot.
Okay. Oh, it's on their lot.
This is an on-the-lot program.
Okay.
I mean, potentially it could be an order where they may say, I've got something that, let's say, is on its way to us. I can order that for you. And then staff could have the opportunity to evaluate price also based on, I need this today because we have a need. Comparatively, I can wait 6 months and save a few dollars if those options are available.
And would we still have to come back and vote on that specific vehicle in the future as well? Or does this
We wouldn't.
give us the okay?
This would give the staff the okay to move forward, and at the rate that vehicle inventory is moving and the availability of it, it allows staff a little bit more flexibility, because oftentimes if we said to a dealer, hey, you have this on your lot, I'd like to, can you hold that price for 2 weeks while our procurement review committee looks at it, and then it comes to the board, that vehicle's off the lot before we can actually get an approval.
That's kind of what my concern was, that we don't know what the money's being spent on, but, I mean, you bring up very valid concerns, so.
And staff would definitely commit to, within the parameters of what's approved in the budget, is the parameters of which we would purchase vehicles without seeking other permission from the board.
I just have a quick question. Mr. Pruitt, on item number 3, the visual equipment, audiovisual equipment projectors, who decides the end of life on those?
Mr. Allen's going to assist us with that.
President Williams, Dr. Sovine, members of the board. Who determines the end of life? The manufacturer set end of life for products on these projectors is 5 years.
So just because they say they're supposed to be replaced, we replace them?
We don't always, no. We have many old equipment projectors in the system right now, but we try to replace them. If you maybe recall last year, I talked about a cycle, so doing a percentage of the projectors each year, just so that we don't have funding cliffs or have old equipment out there. So we're trying to do about 20% of the total amount of projectors each year.
So 20% is the 220?
Yes.
That's what it is? Okay. And do you know what the price was last year compared? I mean, I'm sure it went up.
The pricing on a projector is around, I don't have it in front of me, but it's around, I think, $700, $800 each.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve this evening's consent agenda as read by Mr. Bickford. All those in favor? Okay, we have a unanimous vote, and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Our next item of new business is a memorandum of understanding. Good evening, Mrs. Baker.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Savine, and members of the board. Staff is requesting board approval of the proposed memorandum of understanding regarding ESP Article 6.3, workdays, months, hours between the Board of Education, Washington County, and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel Incorporated regarding a modification of ESP Article 6.3 workdays/months/hours.
Thank you, Mrs. Buffer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Baker? Any discussion? No? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve this MOU between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel, Inc. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote, and did you vote too? Okay, student member concurs?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker. And Mrs. Ramback for the first reading, proposed changes to policy FF, naming and renaming of facilities and granting of naming rights.
Thank you. The Policy Committee reviewed Policy FF at its public work sessions on January 12th and February 16th, 2023. The committee is recommending changes to the policy to address naming and renaming of portions of facilities and fixed or movable equipment, which the policy does not currently address. In addition, the committee is recommending the removal of certain language from the policy because it's more appropriate for the language to appear in the accompanying administrative regulation. And let me just assure you, there is no intention of striking altogether the language that deals with board's prior approval. The intention is to move it to the regulation consistent with how we handle other language of similar nature in policies where we move it to the regulation. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy FF.
Thank you, Mrs. Rand. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy FF entitled Naming and Renaming of Facilities and Granting of Naming Rights.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion, any questions? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy FF entitled Naming and Renaming of Facilities and Granting of Naming Rights. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote, and the student member concurs. Thank you, Mrs. Rand.
Thank you.
That concludes new business, and we will go back to Dr. Savine and his superintendent's report. Dr. Savine.
Thank you, President Williams, members of the board. There are incredible successes happening across our school system. Perhaps one of the schools where the success is most evident is our Marshall Street School and Job Development Program. There are teams of staff meeting the needs of students, overcoming barriers to learning, and helping the unique abilities of our students shine. Dr. Webster is going to be joined by Sarah Stair, the school's principal, and Nancy Smith, the coordinator of specialized programs, to give us a closer look into the Marshall Street School and the Job Development Program.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Savine, or, well, I'm out of order now. Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. It is my pleasure to bring you Miss Sarah Stair, principal at Marshall Street, and Miss Nancy Schmidt, one of our special education coordinators. And the two of them work side by side at Marshall Street, and I have had the pleasure of seeing the work at Marshall Street on a pretty regular basis because we hold our special education supervisor meetings at Marshall Street. So I've been able to see up close the daily work that this amazing staff does with our students. And tonight, we want to provide you with, as Dr. Savine said, with an overview of the programs at Marshall Street, more about the students that we serve, and acknowledge the talented students and staff who make Marshall Street an awesome place to learn. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. We do have a PowerPoint. So you'll see on that first slide on the right a graphic, and that is really the pieces and parts that it takes for our students and staff to be successful. Our students are referred through the DIEP process, and students at Marshall Street all have met the eligibility criteria for the alternate education framework, and that criteria is set forth by the Maryland State Department of Education and the federal government. These students are not pursuing a diploma, they're pursuing a certificate of program completion. And these students are more complex than students that are in the district in the Connections programs. And by that I mean they may have more complex medical needs, more complex behavioral needs, and they can't be served in a comprehensive school that even if it has a program within it, because our students are just very complex. Our staff, I've never met a more dedicated staff. Our staff, if you ever get the opportunity, you need to stop by and just see the collaborative efforts, and they do it seamlessly, and they do it without even talking to each other. If they see something, they say something, they do something. And that is a huge part of our success there. We also have built that collaborative framework that includes our parents. We know the number one success for student success is having that family collaboration, especially when you have students that are that medically fragile and require that much support in their daily lives. We do a lot of professional development. This year we have focused on English language arts and math, behavioral strategies, and just that collaborative teamwork. We include our paraprofessionals in all of our professional development because we know with our students that teachers are thinking on their feet at all times, and there's not time for the teacher to do in-the-moment training with their paraprofessional. So the paraprofessionals are a very integral part of receiving that professional development so that we can support our students. And then instruction, in 2014, Maryland adopted the alternate education standards, the achievement standards, and those are what we would hope our students master or reach. It's a goal for them to reach that in comparison to their general education peers. So they are achievement standards as opposed to content standards, but they are very aligned with the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. So our students get English language arts just the same as any high school student or middle school student or elementary school student get, only greatly modified, so not the breadth and the depth that a general education student would get, but certainly they get that type of instruction. A lot of it, most of it, is embedded in real-world learning, so it may look different than a general education student, but certainly they get all of that type of instruction. We focus a lot on critical life skills. We did change the name of our life skills programs to Connections because we want our students to be connected with their outside peers, with their community, with college and career readiness. So that was an important change for our students and our staff and our parents to really reflect the depth of work that we do around our students. I could talk for days about instruction because it's really, a passion of mine, but I'm going to turn it over to Sarah because she's going to go a little bit more in depth of what that framework looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next slide talks a lot about what we do. And I have to echo Nancy and Dr. Webster's comments in that it really is the staff. We have a staff that is so dedicated to these students. And that partnership with parents is really what makes the school function in the trenches day in and day out. A very highly trained, dedicated staff that just each day amazes me and makes me a proud principal just seeing the work that they do and seeing the accomplishments of our students. So what we do, you have the graphic here, and so really I want to parallel, we fall into that framework for all students of Washington County. So although our students are on that alternative track, the expectations are still the same. So this graphic highlights those three, the triangle effort of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and how they all tie together. And that's what parallels for all students in Washington County. So those expectations remain the same, but I draw special attention to the bottom. So communicative competence is really where we separate ourselves and really where we provide that substantially modified instruction. So what we mean by that is when we're able to establish, so many of our students on the Marshall Street side are nonverbal students. So we have to find what is that reliable means of communication that they have so that we can then meet them instructionally with where they're at so we can target what they know and how we can continue to make those gains. Similar for our job development program side, that communicative competence may express itself more in self-advocacy, managing social situations, managing questions they have on a job, and how to advocate for themselves. So it really sets the framework for instruction that our educators provide. And that's presented in project-based learning, right? So that hands-on, we all know that hands-on digging in and really navigating through problem-solving skills and making that connection to learning is how they're going to make meaning and how it's going to demonstrate relevance. And it's also going to build their self-esteem, right? So them being able to then take those educational risks to try new things and take a deeper dive. And for our job development program side, so we're two houses. Our Marshall Street side, focusing on that pre-K to 12. And then for that 18 to 21-year-old band, for these students, it's really focusing on those post-secondary outcomes. So how can we get students confident in those independent living skills and employment skills, advocating for themselves on the job? And that spreads well beyond the walls of the building. We have an excellent job coaching program that takes students into meaningful employment, both as volunteer and paid. And I also have to draw special attention to our HCC Campus Connection Extension, which is a group of our job development program students who go with their instructor out to HCC and receive this framework in the morning. And then the partnership with HCC allows us to then provide working experiences for those students out on that campus. So in the Hilltop Grill, in the bookstore, the HCC Career Closet, and so on. And that really is what showcases the entire school. So with the help of our talented Public Information Office, we were able to provide for you all a short clip that kind of helps bring a little more meaning to this, in which we took a snapshot of the school day, and we get to hear from some of our educators and see some of our students in action. So we'd like to show that. And then, of course, if you have any questions, we're happy to entertain those afterwards. Hi, I'm Sarah Stair, principal of Marshall Street School and Job Development Program. We are so excited to share with you the many great things happening at our school. Each day, our students are provided specialized, engaging instruction targeted to meet their unique individual needs. Join me as we take a look at our school and experiences provided to students each day by a dedicated staff that helps bring learning to life for all students.
Look, everyone, I've never seen a Liberty coming!
I think the impact and the way that we support our students every day in the classroom is shown through their attitude in the classroom. Our school is very unique in that we have a lot of students that are non-speaking. Many of my students can't openly speak, like, how are you feeling today? So we use a lot of low-tech and high-tech ways to have those conversations in the classroom between teachers and students. We use yes/no cards, Big Mac switch, communication systems on the iPad, and then for our students who are visually impaired, we have slant boards, and we use light to kind of highlight what we want them to focus on in the activities. When they make any kind of vocalization, I acknowledge it, vocalize back sometimes in a way that makes them feel included in the classroom. My students are excited, they want to participate, they want to see what we have for them each day. They like to interact with the technology that we have, and we give them lots of opportunities to do that throughout the day.
The job development program is students from 18 to 21 who are on a certificate track, which means they're not getting a diploma, but they are still in school until they're 21. Our goal is to get students to be prepared for their future or career experiences. We kind of hone their abilities with hands-on experiences. Our culinary and building trades programs develop their ability to use their hands, tools, precision measurements. Our horticulture and coffee house help them develop skills for customer service. And then in the digital literacy class, they learn how to safely use the internet and do things on computers that they might use in any job. We have rigorous standards for the students. When they get a job, the employer is going to want the quality of work to be high. So by preparing them for this higher standard really kind of helps them develop those skills. They're learning skills that would carry over to anything, even independent life skills. You know, when they're at home, if something breaks, they will have that critical skill to actually fix it instead of just calling someone to fix it.
At Marshall Street School and the Job Development Program, we team up with numerous community partners to enhance post-secondary outcomes for our students. These partnerships strengthen and support our families by providing access to resources that can help students succeed beyond the school day.
As principal, I'm so proud of our students who come to school each and every day ready to learn. This is all due in part to the support of our parents and families who give their best each and every day to ensure our students learn and grow.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to entertain any questions from the members of the board.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions?
I'd just like to say, I've had the pleasure of being at Marshall Street several times. Sarah's always been wonderful when I've been there. Your sensory room is great, by the way. I love it. And your wood shop, the ornaments, the things that they make and sell are just really nice. I mean, everything you do over there is just so wonderful. And then Autumn Ackerman's program at HCC, I was able to go out there and visit that program. It's just amazing what all you guys are doing, and we're so happy. Thank you so much for everything. We appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Williams, I just want to mention, I want to thank our team members for highlighting what's right, many successes, Marshall Street School and our job development program. I know Dr. Webster and I here recently had an opportunity to spend some time during our day just seeing the amazing work that is done each and every day. I just want to give a special shout out to your team members, our staff members, paraprofessionals, and teachers, as well as the parents. It's just a very special school. And to board members, I know many of you have had an opportunity to spend time there, and I encourage you, if you haven't been there this year, to take some time out of your busy schedules to visit the special work that's being done at Marshall Street School.
Thank you.
Continuing with the superintendent's report, each year the Maryland State Department of Education reports graduation and dropout rates by 4- and 5-year cohorts. To share the most recent school year data for Washington County, I'm going to ask that Dr. Heath Wilcox, Executive Director of Secondary Education, and Maureen Markovich, Supervisor of Testing and Accountability, join us now with an update.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Sovine. Go ahead. We're here tonight to discuss the 4-year adjusted cohort graduation and dropout rates for the class of 2022. First-time 9th grade students are considered a cohort of students. Students are added or removed from the cohort as they progress through high school. The class of 2022 is the 2018-2019 cohort because this was the year they entered high school for the first time.
So this graph shows a history of the 4-year cohort graduation rates. For the first-time 9th grade cohort of 2019, the graduation rate shown in blue for WCPS is 90.8%. This compares to the Maryland value of 86.3%. This represents 1,519 diplomas. For the 4-year cohort dropout rate for the FTNG 2019 group, the cohort dropout rate is 6.3%. This compares to the Maryland rate of 8.5%, and this represents a total of 117 students. We are happy to take any questions that you have regarding graduation and dropout rates.
Colleagues, questions?
I'm just curious, when it comes to dropouts, is it more often than not that, do you hear from them? Do they officially drop out, or is it sometimes that you just lose contact and at some point they time out?
For both. We have different codes to indicate the reason why the student is leaving. Sometimes it's a lack of interest, and sometimes they disappear. So we can't contact them, and then we will withdraw them.
Do we know what grade most of these students are dropping out, or is it just a general over the 4-year period? Do we have, like, if they're in the 10th grade and they hit a brick wall and they say, I'm done, I'm not coming back, or is it 11th grade, or is there any way that we can tell that?
We do examine what grade they drop out in, and there's not one specific grade that they leave necessarily.
I'll add that for students who choose to drop out, the dropout age is 18, so they can't leave high school before 18. And then for those students where we have whereabouts unknown, that could be any time throughout their high school career.
Okay.
Dr. Wilcox, what would you like us to take away from this data? I know what it says to me, but I'd like you to tell me what you'd like us to take away.
I'd say that the things that we put in place over the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic, for example, our additional summer school opportunities that we run where students are able to earn up to 4 repeat credits, for example, the last 2 summers, going into the summer doing the same thing. And I also think our expanded twilight and evening high school hours or opportunities that we've given students have allowed students to continue to maintain a 4-year on-track graduation, and so our numbers reflect the supports that we put in place for students as we came out of the pandemic has allowed us to maintain a graduation rate from the year before.
Thank you. Just looking at 2016 through 2019, the cohort dropout rate there was pretty flat, pretty unchanging.
Yes, it's been very stable, even with all of the events that have happened, as opposed to Maryland that has kind of
Up and down. Yeah.
increased and decreased.
Thank you. Thank you both. Colleagues, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox and Mrs. Margovich. I appreciate that annual report, and just as a point of emphasis, it's certainly nice to see that our results are better than the state averages, so thank you. As we move on to the superintendent's update, I only have one additional thought to mention tonight. I'd like to remind everyone that this Friday, March the 10th, is a early dismissal day for students. All students will be dismissed 2 hours early this coming Friday. President Williams, members of the board, that concludes my update and reports. Certainly remain available to comments or questions of board members.
Thank you, Dr. Severn. Appreciate your report and your update. This time we'll have personnel action. We have Dr. Webster coming forward with that.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sabine. As discussed earlier in closed session, there are several personnel action items for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel action items.
Thank you, Dr. Webster. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, as presented in the closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Zedmeyer. Okay, the motion is to approve the personnel actions dated today as presented in closed session. All those in favor? Okay. Have a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to reports to the board. And we'll have board member committee reports. Dr. Zentmeyer, would you like to begin with curriculum and instruction?
Curriculum and instruction will meet at Boonesboro High School on March 30th at 1 o'clock to experience the whole CTE program there. With a couple surprises, I'm assured.
Surprise. Dr. Bellmeyer. Facilities, Mr. Gessert.
We have nothing for facilities at this time.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Evans.
I echo Mr. Guestford's comments.
Thank you. Murray, Human Resources.
We have nothing.
Thank you. Policy Review and Development Committee.
We're next meeting on Thursday, March 23rd at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Gessert. Ms. Cruz, you have anything from student government that you'd like to share?
So WCSCC is going to be hosting a convention for Maryland Association of Student Councils in Ocean City. It's a, I want to say 3-night event, and so we've been super busy planning decorations, printing signs, doing all that kind of stuff. And WCSCC is very excited to get, I guess, our name out there a little bit more because we are a smaller county, but it's going to be amazing to get all the counties in Maryland to see the work that we've been doing for that event. So,
Sounds great. Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to share regarding the May Legislative Committee?
May was supposed to meet yesterday, but since we met on February 27th, the meeting has been changed to the 13th, and it'll be a combination in-person and virtual meeting. I will be in Annapolis for the first time in several years to attend one of the meetings in person, because we've been meeting virtually. But virtual meetings are not my thing, so, as you well know.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. All right, we'll move to miscellaneous business. Under miscellaneous business, we have one item as usual, and that is our future agenda item list. It's quite a lengthy list. Coming up on March 21st, we have dual litigation settlement. We have the board's general fund operating budget. We have quite a few recognitions because it's a month for many things to be recognized and celebrated. We will have a report on the MCAP and Maryland report card from Dr. Willow, and on the 21st we will have a legislative briefing so we can be apprised of what's been happening down in Annapolis with our legislators. April 4th has even more recognitions and celebrations that evening, and a presentation that I'm looking forward to, having worked in the Title I program for most of my career. I'm looking forward to that presentation regarding Title I on the 4th of April. So that's the upcoming agenda items. Colleagues, if you have anything that you would like to see on a future agenda, please let a member of the Planning Committee know so we can take care of that. So that's it for future agenda items. We'll move to board member comments. We started down here. Let's start down here with Ms. Cruz. Would you like to comment this evening? All right. Mrs. Murray? Tonight, thank you.
Just want to say I'm looking forward to a night at the Wax Museum. It's one of my favorite events to attend every year at Jonathan Hager, where students dress up as adults who've inspired them. So it's always fun to meet some of these famous celebrities through the years. I think I got written to by Neil Armstrong in my invitation. So, and I guess we got to say go Williamsport, right? Yeah.
Mr. Stauffer?
I just want to thank the International Baccalaureate group at North Hagerstown High School. I've been wanting to visit that program and observe it since before COVID, and Governor shut down the schools and all that. Encourage, you know what happened. So I had a chance to go out there last week, and Mr. Chris Downs, who's, I guess he called him the coordinator of the IB program, I guess that's his title. He took time to show me around, talk to Mr. Warrenfeld, longtime upper math teacher out there, talk to Mrs. Smith, who teaches IB World History, and also got to talk to some of the students in those classes. and talked to them about their research projects, and also had a chance to talk to Mrs. O'Kane, Kim, I believe her name is. She's in charge of the hospitality program out there, and that was quite interesting. Also, of course, we saw them here at the meeting, last meeting or meeting before that, so it's quite interesting. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to visit for about 4 hours at Eastern Elementary School, so see what's going on there.
Mr. Gessler?
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
I'd just like to say congratulations to Boonesboro's We the People. It's quite a feat to win that 8 years in a row, so congratulations to them. Keep up the hard work.
Dr. Fentler?
If you like stories of political intrigue, then you need to read Esther tonight with families who will celebrate Day 2 of Purim. It commemorates the deliverance of the Jewish people 2,500 years ago in Persia from Haman by Queen Esther. She was tempted not to risk her life, as we might also be when it comes to the tough things. When her order, at that point in time, her uncle Mordecai said to her, how do you know you haven't come to this position for such a time as this? This morning, as we discussed with the Board of County Commissioners, the budget, as I look at you beside me and leadership team, in fact, everybody, I have to ask, how do you know you haven't come to this point in your life for such a time as this? Be brave. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. I'd like to, in my comments, I'd like to thank the board members who were up early this morning and at the commissioners' meeting. It was it was an excellent presentation of our draft budget by our superintendent, Dr. Sobine, and it was a very good conversation with the commissioners. So thank you. It's been a long day of meetings, but they've been good meetings and productive ones, so thank you, colleagues. And Dr. Sabine, if you have any parting words before we adjourn?
I just want to echo your statements. I want to thank our board for significant work in this budget process, and certainly today, meeting with the Board of Commissioners, the level of engagement and the support, two-way communication. Just want to extend our appreciation to our funding body and the great partnership that we have between the Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Dr. Sabine. So, colleagues, if there's nothing further, we are adjourned. Thank you.